look at the balance sheet of most of our firms, most of it's now intangible assets. Right across the economy, we're struggling to say, how do we value anything? How do we value knowledge? How do we value intellectual property? How do we value tacit knowledge, the intellectual capital we can't capture? These are right across society and the economy. It's not just the arts. And I think certainly the arts give a focus on this, but I think it's a much broader issue, and working backwards, I think, could be a much more helpful way to think about justifying the investment.
Hassan, you indicate that unless the cultural sectors do go down this path, it's at their peril, that they have to, and they have to do that alongside health and education and crime, etc.
Yeah, I do, and I think it's interesting to think the UK is going through a bit of an experiment at the moment because we're having this very sudden and very sharp fiscal retrenchment, and therefore lots, just about across the board, every body or every individual that relies on public funding is having a very hard time of it, with one exception, and that's the experiment, which is the basic research. To be an academic in the UK at the moment, research is being as well funded as it was prior to the crisis. It's the single lobby that succeeded in protecting its budget, and one of the reasons for that, and obviously we're going through the process where this was achieved, was that the main reason for it essentially was the power of the science lobby to make the case for basic research. And the question is how did they succeed in doing that? How did the importance of basic research get so inculcated in people's minds that the public were quite happy for this particular constituency to have their budgets protected? And I think it goes down to the fact that we're much more explicit about the value of basic research. We have definitions of basic research. We have manuals. We were talking earlier about the Frascati manual. There's an OECD manual that's it's in its 8th edition, which defines what research and development is. It defines basic research. And therefore you have things like R&D tax credits, research and development subsidies. Billions of pounds of money goes into funding that sort of activity. But there's no equivalent on the arts. We don't have equally mature concepts of experimentation in the arts, which leave it vulnerable to, for example, when funding is cut.
Is it that? Or is it that areas of science have been much better about telling the narrative? Because, for example, look at the huge investment Australia puts into astronomy. We're putting $500 million into a new square kilometre array telescope in Western Australia. Now, how do you put an economic value